welcome everybody to this interview. We have Will Ackerman. He is in the East Coast in the United States, and he has accepted to do this interview, something that would not be possible when I did the New Age show back in the 80s. But, this is just amazing, and we are very glad to have him with us today. And we will listen to music from basically almost all of his albums throughout the program. And so we're going to start now, and I'm going to welcome Will to the show and thank him for having accepted this interview. Okay, Will, so I'm just going to start from scratch in terms of your whole life's career. So I just want to, I wonder, as many of the audience wonders, what motivated you to become a musician when you were already succeeding in the building industry?
Well, music was always so incredibly important in my life. I mean, I know that there was a girl in elementary school, when we were 12 or 13 or something like that. And she used to call me Jazz Bo because I was so crazy about music. It started for me, I think, with the Kingston Trio. Were you aware of the Kingston Trio at all?
No,
It
no.
was during the folk revival, and one of the biggest acts in America was the Kingston Trio, and they were at Stanford University where my father taught, and so they were very, very local. And I used to go see them at the little coffee house in Stanford University. And I think there was this huge lesson that I learned in this process, which is that musicians are not somewhere off, on the horizon. No, they're just people right next to you. And I think that's what allowed me to think, oh yeah, I could do a guitar record. Even if I only I remember when they said that I had to press 300 copies of the record. I thought, well, I'll have 200 of those in my closet for the rest of my life. But it didn't work out that way.
Oh, so you ended up uh, dropping out of college, of University Stanford, and started doing your music, your record.
Really, in between that and the music, I mean, I always continued to play music, but I dropped out of Stanford with about less than a year to go, which is suicidal. But I knew that I didn't want to go into the family business, namely of being a professor. My mother had died. My father remarried. She had been the head of the English department at Smith and Radcliffe on the East Coast, and my father had been the head of the English department at Stanford University forever. And that was the only world that I really, really knew. And there's a point at which a young man thinks, I don't just want to do what was intended for me. And I went into the building profession, and I luckily met a Norwegian man named Osmund Hansen, who was a Norwegian boat builder turned ship's carpenter for the Norwegian Merchant Marine, and then on to being a general contractor in California. But I got to work under his guidance and became a very, very good, I hope, builder. And my business card actually read at one point, and I have a copy of it here somewhere, uh, Wyndham Hill Builders slash record slash music BMI. I mean, that was still, it was what was making the money was building houses. And anyway, so my life has been kind of crazy. I'm supposed to be an academician. I left that. I was going to be a house builder for the rest of my life, and then that didn't happen because I just did this little tiny record, and then it just went crazy.
Yeah, from what I was reading, actually, it's through your friend Michael from Massachusetts that you gave him a copy of your In Search of the Turtle's Navel, and then he asked you for 10 more copies, and he sent them all around the radio stations in the U.S., and that was sort of like the beginning of creating Winham Hill.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this was actually in Palo Alto, California, though. I had left the East Coast after being in prep school there and then going to Stanford. At any rate, I had, again, Michael Kilmartin was everything to me. He was the kid next door. He was the older guy. He was really, really hip. He played football. I mean, everything about him was what you wanted to be as a boy. Um, and there was a time I was in my house. Their house was next door, and I heard the sound of actually an electric guitar, and I'd never really heard that up close. And I in those days, you never knocked on the door. You were neighbors, and you just went in through the door and then upstairs, and there's Michael playing a guitar, and I'm just amazed. I don't know, like 12 or something like that. And uh, in that first moment, he said, "Oh, here, this is G, this is A minor, which still is my favorite two
Wow.
chords in the world." And so he taught me those first little things in guitar, and then really is what gave birth to my being a guitarist. So now a million years go by, and I have just brought out my first album, The Search for the Turtle's Navel. It was being sold at only one place in the world, which was the Plowshare Bookstore on University Avenue in Palo Alto. And I had just brought in another small pile of these records that were, on the counter as people came to buy their books. And I had done that. I turned out of the uh, Plowshare Bookstore and walked up University Avenue, and there's Michael Kilmartin. I mean, I hadn't seen him for a billion years. And so I said, Michael, you're the guy who first put a guitar in my hand, and I just did this little record. And so I gave him a copy, and later that night, he called me up on the phone. He said, "Will, this is really a good record. Can I have 10, 12 of these things?" And I said, "Of course." Now this is so unbelievable. Even I can't believe it, but it's a true story. So he called me up probably a week later, or maybe 2 weeks. He said, "Will, so my business now is as a record producer, and I'm working for Fantasy Records." Now, understand that Creedence Clearwater Revival was, in that moment, the biggest act, at least in the United States. And here was the man who was in charge of promoting them. And again, they were monstrous. And he he said, "Yeah, so I sent these out to these radio stations, and by the way, they're all playing it, and most of them are listing it as heavy airplay, and you've got to get on the phone and thank them for their support." And I did that. And one of the calls I was supposed to be talking to John Kurtzer at Kazam in Seattle. And I dutifully called the number, and I said, "Is John Kurtzer in?" And the man who answered said, "No, but I'm Jeff Hyman. I'm the assistant music director. How can I help you?" And I said, "Well, my name is Will Ackerman." And then he just said, "Who are you? There's this picture of a little girl on the cover. No one's ever heard of you. This is the biggest album that we are playing right now. The feedback from the people is insane. Everybody's calling this up all the time." He said, "What are you doing next Saturday?" And I said, "Well, nothing. Whatever." He said, come up. We'll do a radio interview." And I said, "Fine." All right. So this is insane. My cousin Alex DeGrassi and I drive up. It's about 1,000 miles north up to Seattle from the San Francisco Bay Area. And we got to the radio station, and Jeff and John were frantic. They're saying, "You're late." And I said, "I'm late for what?" And he said, "Well, you said you wanted to do a concert, so we put it on, and we're supposed to go play pretty soon." And so I followed them through Seattle, and I get somewhere. I get up on, they push me in, and I walk out on stage, and I'm in the Seattle Opera House, and it's sold out. Now, understand, I have not seen a penny for playing. I've never I play in a little place at Stanford University, which is just this arches area outside, and I just love the sound there. So here's the first concert I've ever given in my life. It's 2,300 people sold out at the Seattle Opera House.
Amazing.
And my cousin and I, because Alex DeGrassi, my cousin, was also in the building crew. And so, we were driving up there. And I got to the point where I said, "Yeah, people, I don't know any more music. This is it. I'm out." But I said I could just play it all over again because that was a joke. And they said, "Yeah, do that again. Play the whole thing again." And I said, "Look, my cousin Alex DeGrassi's right here. He plays better than I do. And Degrassi's on the side of the, stage and he's going, no, 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 I don't want it. I don't want to do this at all. And I just said, Alex, these people want to hear you. And he did have his guitar with him. And he walked out and, of course, killed them. And as he walked off stage, he said, I think maybe I do want to do a record after all, But, for us to have played our first real concert for 2,300 people is it's insane.
And so after that, I imagine with your cousin, uh, you had the suggestions from your friends to help you to do the album, to do a record label, right? The Winham Hill. Oh, well, at first
What?
you didn't have the name, did you?
No, no, no. I mean, the wildest thought that I had at that time that I would ever sell the 300 records that I had to press. I expected 200 of them to be in my closet for the rest of my life. So when people give me credit for having envisioned, the enormity of Wyndham Hill, I mean, yes, as things happened, I mean, as it evolved, I think it's clear that I made some pretty good decisions. But really, at that point, it was just, the impossibility of maybe selling 300 records.
Well, the 70s, 76, 70, when you had In Search of the Trails Navel, it was like a renaissance of music. Um, when people started looking for acoustic music, um, far away from pop and rock and everything else, it was like a renaissance of music. And I think, it was just, uh, we say, ring to the finger, like it was right on. Everything just happens for a reason. And it was just pure magic what unfolded from that. Because I, can you share maybe with us? I've never known how a record label works, but how was creating Winham Hill Records?
Well, again, please do not give me credit for having envisioned this. This is just one step after another. And as I said earlier, I really, really never believed that I would be able to get rid of 300 records. I mean, it seemed like that was the wildest possibility. Um, but with Alex, um, then it was more than just me. And, we called it Wyndham Hill Records, and that's a long story. But I live here in Wyndham County, Vermont, by the way. But that is another story. So again, do not think that I envisioned this. This is just one step in front of the other. And, to have your cousin, Alex DeGrassi, be there is a pretty lucky piece of information. But, then, I remember one night, Alex and I were playing a concert at McCabe's Guitar Shop in Santa Monica, California. And there was a man who came to the concert who I noticed was really enjoying the show. And his name was George Winston. And he said, and in those days I didn't, yeah, there you go. In those days, I didn't have I wasn't poor, but I wasn't rich. So I was very often staying on people's couches or something like that. And, George said, well, you could come stay at my house, if you want. It's a big couch. And I said, fine, I'll do that. And he said to me, Will, do you mind if I play the piano a little bit while you're going to sleep? And I said, yeah, of course, I'd love to hear it. And he played really what would become
Autumn.
his first album. Although he had done some transcriptions. I remember he had done some transcriptions of my music and a little bit of Alex, some parts of it. But he played these on the piano, and it was amazing. And then I was driving. He was driving me actually to the train station in Los Angeles to head back north. And I said, I think we should do a piano record with you. And he said, no, 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 I really want to do the guitar album. And I said, well, no, I think we're going to do a piano record. And, he didn't fight the process too much. And the next thing you know, I'm recording Autumn with George Winston, which of course blew the doors open for us. I mean, suddenly we were a successful independent label, but then we turned into a very real record label. And shortly thereafter, every record company in the world wanted to distribute us, and we it was fortuitous. It was luck. It was the right timing, and we were doing something that nobody else thought, and I didn't think you could make any money out of. But here, no, this audience was there, and they wanted it.
Yeah, well, I don't think it was lucky. I think it was the right timing, and you took the opportunity, and that's what you created was just the largest, the biggest new age house, new age label that we had back in the 70s, 80s. It was just amazing. So I would like to share with you because you guys sit and work and do your music and go to concerts, but sometimes you have no idea what's happening in the other side of the world or whatever regarding your music and what you have done. So this is I want to share with you as brief as possible, like my history, because the audience also, the ones who listened to me back in the 80s in the show, and now they don't know this. But okay, so I went to college in Colorado, in a very small town in Durango,
Oh, uh-huh.
and there was only one record store that sold the stereo systems and music. And when I got there, um, I saw the cover of George Winston's Autumn, and I said, "Oh my God, I picked it just because of the cover." And then I started listening, and then I said, "Oh my God, I can't believe this." I used to play. I used to be a piano player myself, and so
Ah,
I said, "Oh my God, this is amazing." And then I started buying new age music. Started collecting. I was a student, so I could buy maybe 2 records or 3 records a month. But I started collecting music from the Winham Hill and, from Jean-Michel Jarre and American Gramophone. And I started collecting. And then when I came back to Ecuador in 85, I started working in a radio station. And I was a DJ. And by 1987, they gave me a schedule from 7 to 10 in the morning on Sunday. And so I deliberately took that schedule because from 7 to 8, though it was like a pop rock radio, Latin music, but we were beginning. The radio station was beginning. So from 7 to 8, I started putting new age music. I started putting new age music on that span of time, on that hour. And suddenly people start calling me, "Oh, I like this, I like this. Oh my God, what is this? What is that?" And I said, "I can't believe it." So I decided to do the radio show in 88. We started March 88. And I said, "Well, maybe I can get some promo material. I don't know how, back in the 80s, snail mail, everything was
mm,
slower, everything was different.
yeah.
So I wrote to snail mail. I wrote some letters to Winham Hill, Narada Music, Private Music, some labels. And immediately I was astounded because I was in Ecuador. I mean, how are they going to send me LPs? But they sent me promo material, LPs, and not only that, I had all the information how Winham Hill was created, with Anne McGilvray back then, and everything, all the information. I said, "Oh my God, this is just amazing." And I would receive, most of the records arrived very healthy, very wonderful. Sometimes some of them broke.
Uh,
I even received the Rabbit Ears albums. So it's amazing. For some years. Then I went back in the 90s, 90, I don't remember when, 91. I went back to Berkeley to study alternative healing. And as I came back, the last album I received in promo material was Night Noise, one of Night Noise
mm.
albums, The Parting Tide. That was the last album I received because I told them I was going to study, and then when I came back, I would continue with the radio show. And something magical happened after I came back and started my radio show. You know, I went to a concert of Kitaro and John Anderson in Berkeley. And then I said, "Oh my God, I wanna interview John Anderson. Oh my God, I wanna interview this guy," because it was like, oh my God, it was my hero with Yes and everything, Vangelis. And so I knew when I was coming back to Ecuador that he was going to make an album. I just didn't know what album, what kind of music, and with whom he was going to record. And suddenly, when I go back to visit my friends in San Francisco, Winham Hill had moved to Palo Alto. Yeah, I think it was
No,
early.
no, started in Palo Alto.
Yeah, but they have moved to LA or something, and they came back to Palo Alto. Or I at least it was in Palo Alto. It was always in Palo Alto.
It started in Palo Alto, and then the second office was with Jeff Hyman up in Seattle because we were doing so much with Kazam and Kink and the rest of those going down, and then later LA.
Oh, okay. So in the 90s, early 90s, I went back and I called Winham Hill because of the Palo Alto. I was in San Francisco. And your promo manager tells me, "Oh, you're from Ecuador. Oh, that's nice. Come and I'm going to give you some promo material." And when I went there, he was filling me up with all these records. And suddenly I see a poster of John Anderson. I says, "Wow, what is he doing here?" I says, "Don't you know, we have his latest album, Deseo, is through Winham Hill." And I go, "Oh my God, I can't believe it." And and I said, "Please, you gotta give me one of those albums." "Yeah, you already have it there." And I says, and he knew I was going back to Ecuador. And he says, "Oh, how sad that you're going back to Ecuador because we could have sent you to LA where he lived in Pacific Palisades, it's for an interview because we need somebody to interview him." And I go, "Oh my God!" I saw like a vision of me interviewing him on the dream I had a year before. And I said, "Okay, I'm saying." And so I went to Pacific Palisades to his house and I interviewed him for the album Deseo. And so, Wingham Hill has always been in my life in a very special way, in amazing ways. So the musicians, the music has always been part of the show, no matter if it was back then. And then I stopped my show in 2003, and then I retook the show just last month because there's a need. We are again needing, and I will let you know about it later, but there's a need for this and all the awareness that this kind of music can help us tap into ourselves. So I just wanted to share with you that story because I'm sure you would never know what has the consequences of having Winham Hill around the world and how it has reached. Because here in this country, I was the one in charge of, we were a pioneer New Age radio show in Ecuador in the 80s. And there was no association whatsoever with the yuppies or with anything. It was just people from all levels, economic levels and education levels, loved it. So the music here was channeled to music lovers and people who connected with it. There were no labels that took this way or that way to the public. It was, you love it, this is for you. It was amazing. It was a great experience to do it back then. So I wanted to let you know because it was, you need to hear these kinds of things to know how big was what you actually did, even though it was a step-by-step, spur of the moment thing, but it was something really, really big, really. I mean, for that, I'm so grateful, and I was so happy that you accepted this interview.
Well, listen, I I remain incredibly amazed by what happened. I mean, again, it was not something that I envisioned, and in many respects, I can't really take credit for it because it was the people, who heard this music and made us the label that we became. It could have been just a little tiny thing that a few people heard, but the radio stations but it was the people, it was the listeners who were turning on to other people. But you see, I'm saying it was so organic.
Yeah.
It was not. We didn't buy it. We we were hanging on to the tail. Just with the growth of it, the rest of it, it was as surprising to me as it could have been, to anyone. But because of, and I'm not saying this, but really I am grateful to you. I am grateful to the people at Kazam Radio and Kink in Portland, CAS and Cambridge, Mass. I mean, all these people gathered around this thing and promoted it, and the people responded. The listeners responded because there wasn't anything quite like it. And
Nothing.
again, and again, the reason for that is that nobody thought you could make money doing what we were doing. It was not for the money.
Hmm.
It was not, it truly
It was a
wasn't.
heart.
And absolutely, absolutely. There was never, oh, I'm going to have this huge record label. We're going to play Carnegie Hall. We're going to play Montreux Jazz Festival. No, none of that. Absolutely none of that.
Hmm.
But I think that's why it worked. It was honest and it was
Heartfelt.
heartfelt. There you are. I said the same words at the same time. Good. Thank you very much. But
Yeah.
yes, it was heart, and the people responded. And thank you very much for all the
Yeah.
people.
It's a two-way street, and it had to happen. It was just there was no way this could have not happened. So you were the channel, and we are all very thankful for. I understand what you're saying, that you cannot take credit, but when you think about it, it was just something that you channeled, and it was amazing. So you can carry that for the rest of your life, knowing that it was just amazing,
Well,
amazing.
I suppose if I had been chasing economics, if I was chasing
Yeah.
success, I probably
No.
it wouldn't have been
Yeah.
successful. You know,
Yeah.
it,
And
it
that's
was
why
this,
I think that's why the word that we both said at the same time. I think that's why something's happening now. The world is chaotic, but these heartfelt situations um, are needed now. So that's why I doing again the show, and I think it's the energy around this kind of music that you are creating still now is needed, very much needed, because it's way too crazy what's happening in the world right now.
yeah,
So
I
why
agree.
don't we go and listen to some music before we continue? Okay, we're going to. I'm going to present Gasos from your 1976 In Search of the Turtle's Navel, and from the 1977 It Takes a Year. We're going to listen to a Bricklayer's Beautiful Daughter and Rain Sequence. Rain Sequence. Okay, let's listen to the music, and we'll be back with this dialogue with Will Ackerman.